It's amazing how something seemingly small can end up causing huge waves.
Yeah.
Like a ripple effect.
Like a ripple effect, exactly.
And that's what we're seeing right now with this compound in medicine. You've probably heard of it, Ozempic.
Ozempic, yeah.
So today, we're going to do a deep dive into Ozempic.
Right.
Try to figure out where it came from,
Okay.
what it does, and some of the big questions that it's raising for all of us.
Absolutely. And what started as a very targeted treatment has become part of a much larger conversation.
Yeah.
Really has.
So Ozempic, also known as semaglutide,
That's right.
initially was developed to help people manage type 2 diabetes.
Yes, and it's a GLP-1 analog, which may sound a little technical.
Okay, GLP-1 analog.
Right.
Write that down for me.
Yeah, so GLP-1 is a hormone that our bodies produce naturally in the gut when we eat. And Ozempic is an analog, meaning it's very similar to this natural hormone.
Okay.
And because of this similarity, it can interact with those same systems in your body.
So it kind of mimics it?
It mimics it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So one of the key actions of Ozempic is that it signals the pancreas to release insulin, which of course helps to lower blood sugar.
Yeah.
It also tells the liver to produce less glucose.
Okay.
And very significantly, it slows down how quickly food leaves your stomach
Okay.
and reduces appetite.
Oh, wow.
So it's really tackling that high blood sugar from multiple angles.
Yeah, that makes sense for managing diabetes.
Exactly.
And, the information we've been looking at really emphasizes just how effective it is
Yeah.
for regulating blood glucose.
Absolutely. It's a really significant advancement in that area.
Yeah. And I mean, this is really helping people.
Yeah.
But then there was an unexpected development.
Yeah.
It's not always a straight line
That's right.
with these kinds of things.
Precisely.
So what happened?
Well, as people with type 2 diabetes were using Ozempic and experiencing better blood sugar control,
Right?
something else started to become very apparent.
Yeah.
They were losing a significant amount of weight.
Yeah, this was like a side effect.
Yes. Not the primary aim of the medication,
Okay.
but as a very clear side effect.
Interesting.
And this is because of that action on the GLP-1 receptors.
Okay.
It also influences the brain's satiety centers,
Okay.
leading to a much more pronounced feeling of fullness, even with smaller meals,
Interesting.
which contributes a lot to that weight loss.
So this is where the story gets really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because suddenly, this diabetes drug,
Right?
it wasn't just for diabetes anymore.
No, it wasn't.
And word got out.
Word got out.
And I think the health and beauty industries especially took notice.
Oh, absolutely.
And what we see is that weight management clinics started offering this. It became, I don't know, kind of like a...
Like an open secret almost?
Yeah, like a widely known secret for
Yeah.
people looking to lose weight quickly.
Exactly. And it's interesting how quickly this off-label use gained traction.
What do you mean by off-label use?
Yeah, so off-label use is when a medication is used for a purpose other than what it was originally approved for by the FDA.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, Ozempic was approved for type 2 diabetes,
Right.
but people were starting to use it for weight loss,
Gotcha.
which is not what it was initially intended for.
And the idea of significant weight loss
Right.
with a once-a-week injection.
Appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, very appealing.
Yeah.
But this surge in popularity, this kind of desire for a quick fix,
Right.
had consequences that weren't
Yeah.
so great.
That's right. Not for everyone.
Yeah. What were some of the consequences that you saw?
Well, the increased demand for Ozempic as a weight loss aid led to shortages for individuals with type 2 diabetes who really depend on it to manage their condition.
Wow, that's a problem.
That's a big problem.
So we're looking at a pretty complex situation here with Ozempic.
Yeah.
Kind of as one of the sources put it, a promise and a shadow.
A promise and a shadow,
That's
exactly.
right.
We have a medication with very clear benefits for a specific group,
Right.
but its unintended effects have created both a lot of excitement and a lot of challenges.
Yeah, it's like a two-sided coin.
Absolutely.
So we've kind of set the stage now.
Yeah.
We've talked about this unexpected turn of events.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the effects of taking Ozempic.
Right.
We know about the weight loss,
Yeah.
but what else should people be aware of?
Well, the material that we've reviewed details a range of potential side effects.
Okay.
The most common ones involve the digestive system.
Okay.
Things like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea.
Yeah, makes sense.
Digestive issues seem to be pretty common.
Given that it acts on those gut hormones, right?
Exactly. Right.
But we also saw some other possibilities,
Yeah.
like fatigue,
Fatigue.
even some changes in mood.
Yeah, mood changes Those are important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, less specific, but still,
Absolutely.
you got to be aware of it.
Definitely.
There are even some more serious,
There are.
though I think less common.
Yeah, less common.
Potential risks.
Yes. And these include pancreatitis.
Pancreatitis. Now, what is that exactly?
Pancreatitis is an inflammation of the pancreas.
Okay.
And also potentially gallbladder problems.
Gallbladder problems, right?
Yeah.
So anyone who's thinking about taking this or is taking it
should definitely be aware of these possibilities.
Yeah, talk to their doctor.
Talk to their doctor for sure.
Absolutely. It's potent stuff.
It is.
This isn't like,
No.
taking an aspirin.
It's a serious medication with real effects on the body.
So we've talked about the effects on individuals.
Yeah.
But now I want to kind of zoom a little bit.
Okay.
Look at the bigger picture.
Right.
The wider societal impact. What if this drug becomes a widespread weight loss solution?
What happens then?
Yeah, what happens then?
Well, I think we're looking at a potential for a really big shift in how we view health and beauty.
That's a good point, yeah.
If a large part of the population starts using Ozempic to lose weight,
right,
it could completely change our understanding of what is considered healthy or a desirable body type.
And that could really have like a domino effect.
Yeah, it could.
In all sorts of areas.
Across many sectors, yeah.
One thing that came up in the research was the potential impact on the food industry.
That's interesting, yeah.
If people aren't as interested in food because their appetite is being suppressed, what happens to the food industry?
Well, that's a really good question.
Do people stop going to restaurants?
Yeah. Do certain types of food.
Like what happens?
Yeah, and I think you could see entire segments of the food industry, especially those focused on those high-calorie foods.
Right, the big portions.
The big portions, exactly.
Yeah.
Might see a decrease in demand if a lot of people are just not that interested in eating as much.
Interesting.
And this could lead to some interesting innovations.
Yeah, people would have to adapt, right?
Yeah. Right, they'd have to adapt.
But it could also create...
It could create problems.
Yeah, economic difficulties.
Economic difficulties, absolutely.
For certain businesses.
Yeah, it's a whole ripple effect.
And what about beauty standards?
Yeah.
Could Ozempic make those ideals of thinness even more unattainable for people who can't get it or choose not to use it?
It's a real concern.
Yeah.
If a medication can so readily produce a lean physique, it's possible it could really intensify that pressure to conform to that ideal.
Yeah.
Which could really exacerbate body image issues.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, make people feel worse about themselves.
Yeah, it's already a big problem.
It is.
And this could make it worse.
And it could definitely make it worse.
And this brings up another question, and this is a big one.
Okay.
Will we become a society that relies on a drug to achieve this ideal image?
That's a big question.
It's a kind of scary thought.
It is.
To think about outsourcing something so fundamental to our bodies.
Right. Something that's so personal.
Yeah. To a weekly injection.
It raises questions about our relationship with our bodies.
Yeah.
And our relationship with food.
Yeah. Are we really solving health issues, or are we just going after this look?
Exactly. Are we just chasing an aesthetic ideal through medication?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is.
What about the impact on, the medical field itself?
Yeah, good point.
How we approach obesity, metabolic health.
Right. How do we treat those things?
Yeah. Could this become the primary treatment?
That's a possibility.
And then what happens to lifestyle changes?
Right. What happens to diet and exercise?
Yeah. Do those go out the window?
Do those become less important?
Yeah. That's a scary thought.
It's a crucial point, while medication can play a role.
Right.
Relying on it solely without addressing those underlying lifestyle factors might not be a sustainable solution.
Yeah, because you stop taking the medication, and then what?
And then what?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We also have to think about the psychological implications.
Absolutely.
This is a sensitive topic.
It is.
But we have to talk about it.
We do.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the potential psychological impact is really significant.
Yeah.
Particularly for individuals who are struggling with eating disorders.
Right.
The idea of a medication that can suppress appetite.
Right.
It could be very dangerous.
Yeah, because they might misuse it.
Exactly. It could lead to further complications.
And even for people who don't have eating disorders,
right.
that pressure to be thin,
yeah,
which, could be amplified by this drug.
Right. It could lead to more anxiety, more depression.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It's a complex web of factors.
It really is. And of course, there's the money side of things.
Of course.
You know, the economics.
The economics of it all.
We see that Ozempic has been a big financial success.
Oh, absolutely.
For pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And that's led to rising prices.
It has.
What does that mean for people?
Well, it raises questions about accessibility.
Yeah, who can afford it?
Exactly. As demand goes up and prices increase,
right,
there's a risk that the people who actually need this for diabetes may not be able to get it.
That's not good.
Especially if insurance doesn't cover it.
Yeah, that creates a real disparity.
It does, a big disparity in healthcare.
And then you have another problem.
Yeah.
Which is that when there's a lot of demand and not enough supply, a black market can pop up.
That's right.
And that's dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
Because then you have counterfeit versions.
Counterfeit versions, yeah.
Or improperly administered versions of the drug.
And that can lead to serious health risks.
Yeah, people don't know what they're getting.
Exactly. Without proper medical supervision.
Right.
It's really risky.
So it's clear, Ozempic is more than just a new medication.
It is.
It's sparking this huge conversation
Yeah.
about our health, our bodies, our society.
Absolutely. And how all those things connect.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a drug initially meant for diabetes has led to all of these questions about who we are and what we value.
Exactly.
So let's just recap quickly.
Okay.
We've talked about Ozempic's origins as a treatment for type 2 diabetes, the weight loss effects that really caught everyone's attention, the high demand and potential shortages.
The shortages, yeah.
And then, of course, the side effects.
The side effects, yeah.
The nausea, the digestive problems.
The fatigue, the mood changes.
Right, and even the possibility of some more serious conditions.
That's right, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, and zooming out again,
okay,
we talked about how this could change how we see health and beauty.
Yeah, potential shift in our perceptions.
The impact on the food industry.
The food industry could be huge.
Beauty standards, are they going to get even crazier?
That's a real concern.
And this question of relying on a drug to get that ideal image.
Big question.
How Ozempic might change how we treat obesity and metabolic health.
Yeah, the medical field itself.
And then the psychological implications.
The psychological implications. Can't forget about those.
The economic realities.
The economic realities. The money. The accessibility. It's all connected.
And then the dangers of the black market.
The black market, definitely a concern.
So the big questions remain. Is this a breakthrough?
Yeah.
Or a problem in the making?
Or a problem, right.
Is this the future of medicine?
Yeah.
Or is it a quick fix that's going to cost us in the long run?
That's what we need to figure out. That's the question.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
But here's one final thought.
Okay.
If a weekly injection can change how we relate to food and our bodies.
Our bodies, yeah.
What other unexpected consequences might we see?
That's a good question.
In the years to come.
In the years to come, yeah. It's a question worth pondering.
Absolutely. Something to think about.
Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Into Ozempic.
It was a good one.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.